Aloha and welcome to Better Government. This is Better Government broadcast from the Hawaii State Capitol. I'm Representative Gene Ward, and Better Government is something that you have thought about constantly because some of you think you may not be getting it. Well, to give you some insight and give all of us an update on what's going on in the legislature, we have with us today Representative George Fontaine. George is a 25-year retired police captain. He has active Rotary membership, church membership. He's an energy consultant. And I also learned the other day he is an airline pilot. So George, welcome. And we're going to talk about any of the things that we're doing in this session and all the things, except I want to do one thing that I know some people have already seen you do, and that was on the Fontaine factor. Talk about the drug court. Now, as a policeman, you must be a little bit familiar with drugs.
Well, thank you, Gene, for the plug. It was a great show. We just got it out of the can yesterday, and it should be showing soon. The viewers, please keep an eye out for it. But it's a great half-hour show. We actually had a judge from Maui fly over to our studio here on Oahu, Judge Shackley Raffetto. We had Judge Wilson on as well from Oahu. And we go down into the nitty-gritty, bare bones about what drug court is, what it isn't, and how effective it is, and how low the recidivism rate is with people who participate in drug court. They have like an 84% success rate.
Well, that means save money. And we're going to talk about the budget today. So give us some idea how much money is saved by the drug court.
Well, for somebody to go through the drug court program, it basically costs about $10,000. But to keep somebody locked up in prison and offer them no rehabilitation or anything else costs about $40,000 a year. So, it's a quarter of the cost of keeping somebody in jail. And these people come out when the low recidivism rate is what it is. They're getting jobs, they're reuniting with their families, they're becoming productive citizens. It's a program, there's 5 different paths, but I just encourage the viewers to really take a moment, and I don't know when it is on in Oahu. I know it's showing on Akaku on Wednesdays at 8 o'clock at night on Channel 53 on Maui, and I'm not sure what the channel is here and the time when that's going to be on here, but folks, please keep an eye out for it because it's a really good show, and it really is a big eye-opener, and you find out some of the terrific programs that we have here in state government and in the judiciary to try to really help people. And people say, government's got to stop spending money. I think we have to start spending money wisely, and
Amen.
This is something that is dollars that are wisely spent. And we need to look at expanding it. They actually have a waiting list for people to get into the program, and we need to try to look at ways that we can expand drug courts so that we can get more of these people the help that they need.
Representative Fontaine, speaking of spending money, we have a $10 to $12 billion budget, depending on whether you put in federal funds or other funds, but we got a deficit of $1.3 billion. Your caucus, our caucus, my caucus, your caucus have been talking about how we can balance the budget without raising the GT tax. A lot of people are concerned that the magic bullet is going to be pulled out of the, the ammo belt and put in the chamber, and at the last minute we're going to do a surprise on them. What are some of the things that you see that defer any thought or any need to do a GT tax increase?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think nothing is off the table. They talked earlier about the pension tax, being dead on the Senate side, but here it came and raised its ugly head on the House side with it, and it was left in, and it passed on last Tuesday. We saw that go forward, so it's still an issue that's going to come up.
Will many people get caught by the pension tax?
Well, the way they have it now is that if it's over $100,000 a year, then you get whacked with the tax. But really, it's an open door. I mean, and there's nothing to say that it doesn't pass in one version, and then either it gets lowered this year or next year they come in with legislation to lower the threshold to try to get more money. So it's a real concern.
That's the bottom line for everybody, to be mindful that once we get a tax and it gets on the playing field, to take it off the playing field or to not lower it. So those of you who are on maybe 30,000, which was Governor Abercrombie's initial threshold, or 30,700, which was Governor Abercrombie's initial threshold, inevitably and eventually it's going to go down to that. So, George, I know the Minority Caucus has a coalition with AARP and the ILWU. Don't go there. Kapu, take the pension issue off the table. But because it was worth about $112, it got on the table, and hopefully the governor will see the pushback that the people of Hawaii.
Well, and there's also a concern too about the legislation as whether or not it's constitutional, whether you can go back and change a bargaining agreement after the fact. And in essence, that's what it would be. And so the Attorney General weighed in on that and said, you know, there is definitely an issue with that would have to be taken a look at. So it may be subjected to lawsuits and a lot of other things, but it is something definitely to watch for. And also the raising of the GE tax. You know, we hear one side of the face saying we're not going to do it, but then on the other end, people are saying, well, which tax do you want? Do you want this tax or that? Like there's no option that raising taxes in some forms. And folks, what we have seen this session is just the constant drumbeat, boom, 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 like almost every day, where we've seen hikes in vehicle registration fees, we've seen hikes in weight taxes, and it seems so innocuous. It's like, oh well, it's only raising it from $25 to $45, and oh well, it's only a penny more a pound for your car, and it's just this constant, it's not that much money, and then you start looking at the fines being increased, especially for OSHA violations, what, $7,700 for a fine if somebody fails to put up a poster. I mean, that's the maximum. Granted, it may be much less when they actually are fined if they're found to be in violation. But that's the whole thing. It's the whole attitude is like, well, we're going to fix this by fining and taxing people or raising fees in every which way we can to try to make this work. And really what it needs to do is to sit down, sharpen your pencil, go through and look at what things can be paid for today, what things can be paid for after July 1st. And that's why we as the caucus came up with the HawaiiStateBudgetOnline.com. I don't know if we have a graphic for that or the folks can put that up, but HawaiiStateBudgetOnline.com. It's an interactive format, allows people to actually go in, look at all of the numbers and everything that we're looking at, play with it, and see how it affects the bottom line. It shows you the bottom line of whether the budget is balanced or you have a surplus or you have a deficit, just by clicking and unclicking certain things, certain options. And you can go right through it and make your own budget. And please get involved and send us some ideas. We think we've got it all nailed down in there, but I'm sure maybe some folks out there may actually have some other ideas.
Yeah, I think you're a great reminder of how open and transparent it is, because all the decisions that we have as options in front of us, you, the public, will have in terms of what revenues, what expenses, and if and when it balances. In simplest terms, it's a Excel spreadsheet which automatically is programmed. When you click on the side of a revenue or you click on the side of an expense, it calculates what the deficit or the plus works out to be. And as you said, ours balances without a GT tax increase. And if you don't believe us, you go to www.HawaiiStateBudgetOnline.com and see for yourself. And there's even a thing you can click on next to home. It says, send us your budget, or send it to the speaker, or send it to the governor, and say, here are my choices, here are the options that I would take, here are the things that I would do if I was in your position. Well, this is the second Republican alternative budget that we want to share with the people of Hawaii, and as Representative Fontaine said, get involved, get engaged, and your opinions count tremendously. What else have we been doing this session?
Well, one of the things we talked about, which has had some concerns, although this is just a feasibility study, but they really have brought this whole concept of a state bank back online. And the premise is that, well, I believe it's North Dakota has a state bank, and they've had it for 100 years, and it really works well. And so, I had reservations about it. It's only a task force at this point, and they want to take a look at the feasibility of doing something like that. That's fine if they want to go study it and see how it's going to work or not going to work. But it's something that, it takes away from our private banking industry, I believe, and it kind of moves us towards state-controlled industries, very big concern. Another thing that came up this session, too, was the state ferry system. Now, while it sounds good that, we're going to get the ferry back and this is a very good thing for farmers, what they were talking about doing, folks, is they were actually going to expand the Department of Transportation, which is great. We're going to expand government now. We're going to create a new ferry transit authority, and then the state is going to go out and actually run this ferry. And here we went through this whole rigmarole with the other ferry, and we saw how that all worked out. and now they want to get in and do this. I say, if we're going to do a ferry, let's help private industry come in and run it and give them the breaks that they need to get it off and get it successful. Handhold them if need be to go through the EIS or whatever it takes, but let's do it again, let's do it right, let's get the right kind of watercraft here to really service the people who, because we need something that's an alternative, but I do not believe it should be state-run.
Right now it costs almost as much to fly to the Big Island from Honolulu as it is to go to Los Angeles, so an alternative mode of transportation is definitely necessary, and hopefully something that the small farmers, the produce guys, and the fruits and the vegetable, those vendors can do free trade, which brings me up to the frozen bread issue.
Oh, yes, that was another big issue. That's, again, you know, government stepping in and taking sides or promoting a single industry or a single business. And in this instance, what happened is to require all bread that is frozen that had to be labeled as such. And it's pretty ridiculous, because if you look at the fact that frozen bread isn't any different than fresh bread, and in terms of taste, color, and really labeling should come down to health and safety as the issues first.
Yes.
It shouldn't be where we're labeling things just to give one product an advantage over another. And that's basically what this did, was basically try to give a one-up for Love's Bakery over all the other bakeries in the islands and also on the mainland, and to support that one particular industry. And we also saw that again with a bill that would now charge excise taxes to Dish Network and DirecTV, the satellite service providers for television systems. And it's basically to try to level the playing field between Time Warner and the satellite providers, because Time Warner must pay more each month, because they have all these PUC fees, because their cables literally cross public lands and streets and roadways. So they're at a disadvantage because they have to pay these fees. So what they wanted to do is to try to level the playing field in terms of operational costs onto those satellite providers, so that it would be more of a level playing field. And this is where government just does not need to get in and start tinkering with these things.
Excellent point, George, because I think people misunderstand you, that it's sort of knee-jerk, they think Republicans are pro-business. Well, that's not really true. Republicans believe that the referee is the government. The referee is the one who keeps the private sector playing field by the rules. But in the instances you gave regarding the bread and the satellite, it's when the referee gets down on the field, he starts playing with one team, and then the playing field tilts.
Yeah. How about that bill we heard on Tuesday with the internet taxing of the goods and services?
Okay, you want me to take that one?
Yeah, why don't you take that one? That was
the price of living in Hawaii has already gone up by what Representative Fontaine has talked about in terms of driving weights, pensions, what you drink, 20%. But this is a big one. This is for all of those of you who purchase on the internet. And who doesn't nowadays? And this is an attempt to tax all of those purchases on the internet. And because of the Interstate Commerce Clause, and George, this is a big one. Because of the Interstate Commerce Clause, we have always had free trade between the states. There cannot be trade barriers. So unless everybody taxes the internet, it's not actually legal. What we've got through the ingenious mind of the representative from Manoa is one where if we have reported to the state of Hawaii through the vendors on the mainland where you bought the